Hi, this is week three's podcast. First, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about weeks 1 and 2's discussion forum. I've updated our online gradebook, and you all should see some evaluations associated with each of your forum activities to date. If you want to learn more about how I've been evaluating the discussion forums, please go to our course website in Blackboard, click on course information, and you'll see a link that's labeled Discussion Forum Rubric. Clicking on that link will give you a breakdown on what I'm looking for in the forum posts, and I've also included a couple of screen captures of what I think are pretty effective online exchanges. Take a look at them, and even though they aren't perfect, they're strong enough that you might want to look at them and emulate many of their characteristics. Try not to worry too much about discussion forum grades for each individual assignment. What you really are thinking about is your course performance in aggregate over the entire span of the semester. Your grades are primarily going to be based on your major projects, but the discussion forums are an excellent way to rehearse the different ideas and concepts that we're covering in class, and it provides you with an opportunity to test out how you articulate some of your ideas to an audience of your peers. So the discussion forums really take the place of the normal conversation that would occur in a face-to-face classroom. I take them seriously, and you guys are doing so as well. I've been very impressed with your work so far in terms of our discussion forum exchanges. Keep up the good work in that regard. Now, in week 2, you talked a lot about Google services, and I opened up the assignment by trying to place the Google services within the context of Worcester State University. Worcester State was one of the first state institutions in Massachusetts to partner with Google, and we did so largely because of resource and costing issues. We were allocating 2.5 full-time employees to maintain our email and data storage environments, and we really couldn't keep up with user demand. But rather than jumping immediately to Google, what we did do is a number of focus groups where we asked our users what was important to them in terms of email and data storage, and what we tried to do is match their needs with resources that were available. When we partnered with Google, what we did is we primarily were interested in its email and data storage opportunities, and its application suites, Google Docs, spreadsheets, and the like, were more of an afterthought because we were and still are primarily a Microsoft Office shop. But that said, a good number of our users have embraced Google Docs platform for its collaborative opportunities. Now, whether an organization should move entirely into a Google environment largely depends on whether Google's application suite provides enough functionality. It should for probably 80 to 90% of the average end user, but there are going to be some people who have more sophisticated productivity needs, and Microsoft will probably be a prerequisite for them. Now, you could avoid Microsoft and its licensing altogether, rely primarily on Google Docs environment for basic productivity tasks, and for your more power users, shift people over to something like LibreOffice or OpenOffice, which are open source office suites that are extremely competitive with Microsoft's offerings. But again, you're now dealing with two different interfaces, both of which are different than Microsoft's, and there will be a significant learning curve. And for many users, Microsoft is the default gold standard in terms of productivity applications. And it is sometimes a difficult sell to convince users that they ought to be considering the collaborative possibilities of Google Docs or the open source opportunities associated with OpenOffice or LibreOffice. Now, this said, I think that users are becoming much more comfortable with the notion of their data living in a cloud-based environment. And as they rely more heavily on cloud services, application opportunities like Google Docs become much more acceptable. So the growth on our campus of Google Doc users has increased significantly since our initial implementation 6 or 7 years ago. I think that many of the points that you guys introduced were right on the mark. Google Docs or a cloud-based application suite, whether it's Google or Microsoft or others, does have the potential of enhancing productivity. For instance, I'm working on a project with another third-party vendor who relies very heavily on Microsoft Office documents. What we do find is that because they're relying on traditional, locally stored Office documents, we either have to email them back and forth, excuse me, or place them in a Dropbox shared directory, which can lead to file collisions and file corruptions. But if we could really just use online version of Office, or even better, Google Docs, as a way to have multiple collaborators working real time on the same document, our productivity would increase. I think that those of you who point out the importance of service redundancies also are on the mark. Google has a very good uptime, 4 nines. They're very, very strong. We've seldom have had a problem with accessing Google services on the Google's end. But that said, most organizations will point their infrastructure towards Google, so just by partnering with Google doesn't necessarily mean you lose all of your internal maintenance responsibilities. So if one of your DNS servers falls, for instance, or if something's mapped incorrectly, it is conceivably possible that access to Google would be curtailed. And if there is a major connectivity outage, for instance, an organization loses all of its bandwidth, can a cloud-based organization still perform its day-to-day functions? So you do need some service redundancies. I do like the observations that many of you made regarding locally hosted applications like Microsoft Outlook. One of the great advantages of a cloud-based infrastructure is that data isn't resident on an individual machine. And what we did find when we were migrating from from Outlook, Microsoft Outlook Exchange environment to Google, is that most of our users had data stored in a variety of different locations, on their hard drive, on network drives, and removable media. And the consolidation of that data was really problematic, but more importantly, and the risk of disaster was incredibly high. So everything was dependent upon specific local media. So a cloud-based solution really works well. Google, one of the good selling points of Google is that they were experts in email and data storage. And as hard as our staff would work to stay current and up to date on emerging technologies, Google are experts in those areas. So not only were Google far advanced than we were internally on their ability to host email and to store large blocks of data, they also were much better at dealing with regulatory compliance issues of discovery, incident management, documentation, hardware maintenance. All of that really enabled us to say, Google, you are the experts in your domain. What we're going to do instead is focus on what we do best, which is educating our students and supporting our administrative staff that keeps our university in business. But overall, I think that you guys did extremely well in the Google Services discussion. And the Google Services is just one example of many, many different cloud-hosted arrangements or third-party hosting arrangements. We were one of the first universities in the country to host with Blackboard, and we did so because we believe that Blackboard can guarantee higher quality of service and greater degrees of uptime than we could have done internally. So when you're looking at services such as Google, and you're looking at transitioning an enterprise into such a service environment, you got to ask, what are your opportunity costs? What are the migration issues? What are going to be the user's responses to change? What are the short-term financial costs, the actual cost of transition, and the long-term opportunity cost? Are there going to be disruptions in services and the ability to perform operations? And will the third-party arrangements scale with the growth of your organization? These are all very important issues, and I think that it would be worth your time to go back reread some of the streams in week's 2 discussion forum and think about them as you start selecting your topics for Project 1. Excellent work, weeks 1 and weeks 2, and so far the material submitted for week 3 is very good too. Please take care.